All right, it's clear to us at this time right now that the federal government is looking for ways to turn us into a nation of renters here in Canada. And if you don't believe that to be the case, I would just look out at the last week to 2 weeks to see what kind of information has come out from the provincial level, depending on which province you're located, and the federal level across the country to support exactly that. We already know that there is a real estate housing crisis, and we know that real estate values as a whole will continue to go up as time goes on. But if you didn't know this already, it is very clear that the support is much more on the side of turning us into a nation of renters. Now, whether you believe that or not, I'm going to provide you with some evidence based on the information that we have seen and the different types of programs in the last few weeks. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you could definitely leave a comment below. Come on, let's make this fun here, guys. Make sure to leave some good comments, some good feedback with some real information that supports this as we go through. Let's get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about Trudeau's infamous Renters' Bill of Rights. That's right, the Renters' Bill of Rights. Now, before we go too deep, I want to explain here, first of all, we are not bashing renters. I rented for a number of years before buying my first property, and I have some amazing tenants and people who rent properties off me. There is definitely a place for people in the market to rent real estate for a variety of reasons. It's not what this conversation is about today, but what it is about is where we're spending our time and our money and our energy to support real estate in Canada and help to fix some of the problems. Now, whether or not you agree with me, I do believe that supply is the primary issue, and not just supply as a whole. I think it is the right type of supply. Now, going back into Trudeau's Bill of Rights for renters, essentially just recently back on April 1st of 2024, Trudeau actually announced a potential Bill of Rights, which it is proposed to support renters in a number of different ways. Some are good, and some are going to have a very negative impact on the rental market and likely decrease the amount of rental stock as you put more and more weight on landlords. As you keep in mind, many landlords are already being decentivized of actually owning real estate because of so many different restrictions in many different provinces, namely British Columbia and Ontario. Let's briefly talk about what was in the Bill of Rights, some key points, and then you can summarize what we think about those thoughts. Now, starting off right now, I should suggest that the vacancy rates right now in Vancouver, as we'll use that as a primary city, are still exceptionally low at 0.9%, which shows a very tight rental market. Most of the critics, as we suggested previously, are suggesting that this is not going to help rental supply, which is the primary issue that we're dealing with here today. The proposals at this point right now include a disclosing rental price history and integrating rent payments into credit scores. Let's break that down really quickly. So disclosing the prices and the costs of rental properties, it doesn't take very long for someone to literally look online and look at Facebook or Craigslist to find out what rental prices are at any given time. I suppose if you look at them, you can see historically where rents were, but I don't really necessarily understand exactly how that is going to have any kind of positive impact on a potential renter. Hey, this is what rent could have been, but this is what you're paying today. I don't know what the thoughts are there, other than to suggest there's a directory that provides data long-term. Sure, I guess if that's a useful resource at this time right now, you can consider that to be the case. The second one that I mentioned is integrating rents into credit scores. Now that one is really interesting, and I do think that that is a fair assessment. I do believe that we should be able to integrate rent into credit scores. In fact, I help out many first-time buyers who have very minimal credit or no credit at all, and sometimes it can be hard because they don't have enough credit yet. Doing this could help out credit scores. But herein lies the biggest question: who's reporting this? Because if you put this on the landlord's shoulders, well, you just added more work and more weight on their shoulders. And if they have a property manager, they're going to increase the cost of a property manager, therefore making it less attractive for a potential landlord, or more work, which will make it less interesting and ultimately will provide less very valuable investors and landlords to the marketplace. So for as many people that vilify investors, we need them in our country to be able to provide rental options for people who are looking to rent. Otherwise, you're relying 100% on government-funded renting, which is not a good thing. So those are the two biggest ones. Continuing down the list, there are some suggestions here from a number of different sources to consider the possibility of funding initiatives to support the existing rentals that are in place. So in effect, like creating these different rules and guidelines, what this can essentially do is, again, decentivize landlords. And I suppose the only positive from a renter's perspective would be that it would provide renters with a little bit of a better history, so they could look at what else might be renting in a similar area for a similar type of product, or even support people to actually price the rent that they are seeing in a particular area. Aside from that, you're really not helping anyone. If you're looking to do anything, you should be able to resolve issues faster and spend more time and money on that. Which leads us to our second point around what the provincial government of British Columbia did to essentially come up with a new quote-unquote Charter of Rights. So the idea is to create more protection for renters, families, and landlords is what it says, although I don't know this to be the case. So here's some of the amendments that we are looking to see, or the particular things that the BC provincial government has come up with in their legislation. Number one, there is an amendment aimed to prevent bad faith evictions by mandating landlords to use a web portal for eviction notices. So the idea here is that a person that is looking to evict a tenant because, well, maybe they're going to move in or do a massive renovation or something of that nature to the property, they're saying, well, instead of doing it the old school way, which is to provide a letter, now you have to go through web portal, and they think that by doing that, there's going to be more desensitization, that people might not do that, or they might think twice about it. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think people will still continue to do what they do right now, and perhaps you'll see the odd situation where a bad faith eviction might not have occurred. I don't think it's as common as what people think it is in most markets. But at the end of the day, the only reason that these types of things happen is just, again, a limited amount of supply and inventory, and I don't think this fixes any issues. So I think that's a nothing burger. In addition to that, they're coming up with a standardized process for serving eviction notices. Now, I'm not against a standardized process to serve eviction notices. I think at the end of the day, this is probably a good thing. And I think that if there could be a much quicker and faster dispute timeline to evict someone, it's a positive for both the government, the renter, and the landlord. My concern is, how is that actually going to happen? In BC, generally speaking, it has weighed very heavily to the tenant. And in the last couple of years, due to increasing costs and all the things around that, you've seen a lot more people squatting and not leaving properties, which has meant that landlords have been decentivized to actually keep these properties, and they don't want to actually deal with this anymore. So I think a good resolution and a quick resolution is really important from that perspective. Other things that we've noticed that this BC Bill of Rights has said, they're trying to eliminate renters from being able to charge more money if someone under the ages of 19 is in the home. We don't know exactly what that means yet. Does that mean that someone could just bring in another renter under 19 from any direction? Does it have to be a family member? Does it have to be a kid? What does that look like? I think ultimately there needs to be some more explanation as to what that actually means. But I think as a general rule, most landlords, at least the ones that I know, if a family member has another child, are very unlikely to increase rent or change rent because of that reason. So I don't think this is actually dealing with much at all, because as far as I understand, this is not a common issue. At the end of the day, these types of situations are there to support the renter more than they are the landlord. And while I don't disagree with all the different outcomes, I think this is just another nothing burger, and it's not going to solve any issues in the long run. I'd love to hear if you agree or disagree. But let's get on to my last point here today, which is about the Canadian government announcing a $15 billion top up to the apartment construction fund. Check this out. The total from the Liberal government now is $55 billion that they're spending on this apartment program. So some of the highlights here, the goal is to build 131,000 rental units by 2031-32, which, as you may already know, is still under what is going to be required based on our current population, even if they stop bringing in the immigrants that they're talking about bringing in. This is also mostly for low cost solutions, meaning lower income families or just lower cost rental units. Basically, at the end of the day, the idea is that they're building on government, nonprofit, community owned, and vacant land, and they're trying to streamline the process to 12 to 18 months. As far as critics are concerned, the NDP just basically says it's for profit developers, which obviously, why would developers not do it? Why would they bother building these apartments if it wasn't for profit? So I think that's a ridiculous statement, obviously. And the Conservatives are saying it's just a failed program that it creates bureaucracy. I kind of lean more of the mindset that at this point right now, it's just too late, and they're not addressing the real matter at hand, which has to do with more construction for more families overall, and not just stock of apartment rental supply that's only going to support a small subgroup of the economy. Remember, families want to live in larger properties, not just single bedroom or studio condos. So again, I don't think this is addressing any major issues. They're just minor little bumps along the way. There was a lot of information, but if you, after this evidence, if you still don't believe that we are moving into a nation of renters based on this, I would love to hear from you below. Give me your feedback, throw it out there. If you have other suggestions or other items that you think I should have covered in this, let me know. And I hope you found this valuable. See you on the next one.